Andy, I'm in the midst of, well, I guess it's tropical storm now. We got a lot of rain coming here all
Yeah,
day yesterday, a lot of wind today. Hurricane Helen, Pat, I think it's Helen, right?
Helene, I believe.
Helene, oh, sorry. Helene, Helene, she packed the punch. I mean, the Big Bend part of Florida got really hit hard.
Yeah, I mean it got strong fast. I mean it escalated a pretty strong storm yesterday. My son's down there in Florida, so they had classes canceled yesterday, and he sent a video last night of the winds just, I mean, howling. It was strong. So I mean like you said, Dave, Mother Nature is no joke. Helene, one of the fun storylines in The Office a number of years back. If you remember when Michael was dating Pam's mom, if you might recall that from the series, which
I do.
thank you, The Office, for so much entertainment. But Dave, happy Friday! It's almost October. Hurricanes afoot, crazy weather, crazy football, and you look dashing in your, as you've corrected me before we started recording, red shirt.
Just red shirt, Andy, just red.
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
um,
not fuchsia. Just to be clear about that.
yeah, just not fuchsia. I'm not Dennis Rodman's hair or anything like that. Or, um, all right, Andy, let's jump into our topics because
Right.
I'm not sure it is like I'm happy it's Friday, but I watched some of the worst football I've ever seen last night, and it was bad. The Cowboys beat the Giants 20-15. I was just in like an awe at one. The Cowboys couldn't move the ball very well. Um, and then there was flags all over the place. I think there was like 9 or 10 accepted penalties against the Cowboys in the first half, Andy, not in the game, in the
That
first half.
stinks. Yeah.
Malik Neighbors, who was the Giants' number one draft pick, seemingly, I think he had like 15 catches or 12 or 15 catches last night. The Cowboys' defense is not good. And it got worse because some people got hurt. But the Giants are like equally as bad. The Cowboys had been run over like crazy, and the Giants could only muster like 2 yards of rush or something.
Yeah.
David Jones, I think it's David
Danny,
Jones, right?
Daniel
Yeah.
Jones, Danny
Or
Dimes.
Daniel Jones, Danny Dimes. Um, he um he was tearing the Cowboys apart until they get to like the red zone, and then he couldn't put it in. But then in the last fourth quarter, when they had a chance to win, they had a chance to go up. He just became reverted to the old Daniel Jones and
Yeah.
just couldn't do anything. It was bad. But the Cowboys are just not good. And any Cowboys fan who's out there thinking like this is a strong contender, we've got the next couple weeks coming up of really hard, like tough games. Like God bless them, you know. So, but but it did get me thinking, and we kind of touched on this a little. It's not Mike McCarthy, I don't think. I think it's the infrastructure of the Cowboys at this point. Like Jerry Jones has been the owner since 88 or 89. We've had ups and downs. Obviously, the Super Bowls that ended in 96, like the 95-96 season. And we haven't been back to the conference championship game, Andy. And at some point, it's not like we've had good head coaches, and it just hasn't, it just hasn't worked out. And I think it just like these owners fucking suck. I
Yeah.
mean, look at
Ownership makes a big difference. I mean, it really does. I mean, I think the Lions are a true testament to that. It's now I don't want to get your coach off the hook. I think McCarthy's terrible. I said he was terrible. I was happy when the Cowboys hired him, and I don't really look forward to him being fired because I like him there, but he's going to be fired. But look, I mean, Detroit suffered under the ownership of the Ford family for decades, right? It just wasn't a highly motivated owner when Mr. Ford was owning that team. Like they were fine just being fine, right? Wayne Fonts and you know occasionally maybe threatening to get in the playoffs and being mediocre. When Mr. Ford passed and his wife Martha took over, she brought another level of aggressiveness. She just hired not the best people, unfortunately. She went with the Patriots way, thought she was going to turn the franchise around. Just weren't the right folks. Matt Patricia, be done. But now, under younger Sheila Ford, Hemp, the Lions are doing great. You know, you have an owner that genuinely wants to win, does her job, lets the team does their job, you know, including the personnel, the coaching, and it's just a complete change of direction for the franchise. Ownership matters. Daniel Snyder in Washington killed one of the greatest franchises in sports with just being an absolutely horrendous owner. And now they're trying to dig out of it after having a great owner, you know, during our time growing up, even Jack Ken Cook. So absolutely ownership matters. And Jerry Jones, all 186 years of him, might not be the guy anymore, you know?
Well, it's I mean, the Daniel Snyder thing is a perfect example. I grew up the reason I'm a Cowboys fan is because I hated the Redskins. I mean, and because they were so good. I mean, they had Joe Gibbs as their coach. They had
Yeah.
three Super Bowls and I think it was a 10-year period. And they had went to a fourth one. They were the Niners and the like they were the elite of the NFC at the time, and then Daniel Snyder came in and ruined that franchise. It's a pitiful organization. And you look at what's going on in Oakland now too. The Oakland A's, I know you're not a big baseball fan, but they played their last game in Oakland. They're going to go play in a minor league baseball field for the next 3 years in Sacramento. At least it's 2, maybe 3 years because he wants to move the team to Las Vegas. The problem is Las Vegas doesn't necessarily want a baseball team. And so he's been trying to but he hasn't invested in the stadium. He hasn't invested in the team. They were,
Yeah.
the Moneyball movie is an example of how they were able to survive because their owner wouldn't pay. I mean, effectively, how did they capitalize? And I think owners can really ruin a city. And I get it, like it's their money, they're paying for it. And I do believe at some point cities should help in stadium costs and such. But at the same time is that just means more taxes to the people. That just means more higher prices because if the team is good, they don't lower the prices, they don't
Yeah.
make it more accessible. They just
Yeah.
try
That's
to
right.
put more money in their pocket. And when they sell the team, they don't give the money back to the city.
Yeah.
So, but this individual killed the Oakland baseball team over a period of 18 years. And then he comes in and puts a ad in the newspaper and saying, I tried to make it work here.
Yeah.
I tried. Andy, they don't have a stadium being built somewhere. He's just being an asshole.
Yeah,
And
they want that subsidy, and Dave, I'll tell you honestly, like I disagree with that, right? I mean, when you're talking about guys that have hundreds of millions of dollars, billions of dollars, right, to buy these clubs, like they don't need taxpayer subsidies to build their fancy new stadium and then mismanage it, right? Again, FedEx Field and Daniel Snyder, a great example of that. It's just
yeah,
the team and the field were just mismanaged, taking seats out every year because the fans were so turned off. Like people shouldn't have to subsidize billionaires and their sports franchises, right? I mean, Dave, you know my dream, right? My dream is to one day own a minor league sports franchise of some kind, right? That's the Andy Jabor dream, and just sail off into the sunset with some club. Taxpayers should never have to pay for people's sports teams. They don't pay for other businesses. They're not paying for a
yeah,
new office building to be built. It's just a scam, and cities buy into it because they think they want that shiny sports club in that big stadium, that big dome, that big arena, whatever it is. And I get it, but it shouldn't be on the backs of taxpayers, and so yeah, I mean there's so much, there's so many old rich guys mismanaging sports teams, and we continue to pay for it because we love the sport, we love the teams, but the owners sometimes are just like complete
yeah.
garbage. So, so I got a little bit off of the Cowboys there, but sorry for
Well,
Dallas
I
going
mean,
through.
it is a larger Cowboys I mean, I think it is the root of some of the Cowboys' problems. Like they have an owner who's been there, and he's the general manager evaluating talent. I mean, I
Yeah,
just don't. I don't think that's really.
because they had some good draft picks in the '90s that he still thinks he's a genius
Yeah.
GM for getting Troy Aikman right. So
Well, and look how he managed the whole Dak contract, CeeDee Lamb. They still haven't paid Micah Parsons. Like they're so far behind everybody else in the NFL. But all right, Andy, let's move to another topic.
all right,
Andy, you're you pod a lot. You do a lot of good things on the podcast front. We do this 3 days a week. You also do another. I think you do two other pods. I mean, you do obviously a work related one, and then you do another politics type of one. Check those out if you want to see Andy Jabor in other forms. God knows I get enough of them here. So, but Andy, you also have found time to write a little bit. You used to write a little bit more. You put a pause for a little bit, but you've written again, and you picked an interesting topic for this, I guess, re-entry back. America is awesome, Andy.
Yeah, yeah,
Um, so explain a little bit behind uh,
yeah, yeah. So thanks, for that, Dave.
explain a little bit behind that.
Yeah, what the hell am I doing, right? So I'll tell you, I enjoy
Andy, did I
writing.
lose you?
You know, as I was thinking about things, and I was like, you and I do this podcast 3 times a week, and our work related podcast, and the other one that I do, and like an underlying sort of back theme to a lot of it is really that I mean, like you and I both just love this country, right? We love this country. I think while we sometimes go a bit, goofy in some of our political discussions and going crazy with some of the politics of today, like we love what we have here. And it's awesome. And just the sort of constant tone in politics right now, and somewhat from both sides, but especially from one side, is that things have never been worse, right? So it's just so dangerous in so many ways. It's politically dangerous. It's violent crime dangerous. There's all this rhetoric and talk. But as we said on this podcast before, like things have never been better, right? As crazy as they seem, right? I mean, we're bitching about these things in our comfortable homes, on our iPhone 16s, with the greatest Wi-Fi in the world, if, eating better than ever. Like, I mean, in every respect, every measurable respect, even coming out of COVID, like this country is great and it's never been better and it's continuing to get better, right? Economically, financially, technologically, and like we lose sight of that, and it pisses me off because there's this what I call this alternate universe, which I'm calling the Bizarro America Cinematic Universe, Dave, the BACU, right? And it's this crazy warped version of America, right? Bizarro, if you recall from our kids, those remember the Super Friends or wherever you maybe consumed comics, like Bizarro was one of Superman's enemies, and he was the distorted, warped anti-hero version of Superman, right? And I feel like that's the America that too many people are trying to sell us, right? This warped, twisted, corrupted America that isn't a real version of what we have. And I'm sick of it. And I think, civics and democracy, like they require all of us to be involved in some way. They require all of us to sort of do our part, whatever that is, right? And I don't want a big part in any of it, but I think we all have a role to sort of advocate for what's right and good and great about this country. And that's really what I'm trying to do with this Substack is just sort of advocate for the fact that, hey, America's awesome. And there's things that can be better, of course, always. There's things we can disagree about, which is fine. But like this is a great country, and the freedoms we have, the privileges we have, the wealth that we have, the opportunity that we have is just tremendous. And what we've been able to do over the last 200 plus years is phenomenal. It's unprecedented in world success. And while people like to forget, like the free market won, democracy won, right? 1989, the Berlin Wall fell, our system of government won. It's the greatest thing that's ever happened in the world, from an economic and technological standpoint. And like, there's just so much good news that we don't celebrate. So I want to help celebrate it, Dave. I want to help celebrate it. So I thought it'd be a fun way to sort of share some thoughts and ideas. It'd be a fun way to consolidate some of our podcasts and share that different way for those that might miss an episode here or there, and just sort of talk about the great things that this country is all about, and maybe some ideas on how we can make her better. And folks can disagree, and like that's fine. Like we can disagree without going into the crazy conversations that we have when we disagree in politics today. So that's my hope, Dave. Thanks for letting me ramble. I'm excited about it. Glad to share it. Have the post come out later today, and just want people to help me, join in celebrating this great country.
Yeah, I mean, I think I think that does get lost in so much of this is, the my way is good, your way is bad, and that type of, that just fuels a lot of it. And I know that's always that's existed for a long time, but it really has since the early 90s really just spiraled out with the explosion of some of these they're not journalists, but they're just talking heads. And I think, I mean, they really are. Their goal is to drive ratings. Their goal is to drive clicks. And frankly, it's the politicians who feel off of that. Andy, there was an Axios article that you shared with me yesterday just about misinformation. We've talked about that a lot on this podcast, but um, we've talked a lot about that on the podcast. But the largest concern about misinformation, for over 40% of people said they fear politicians
Yeah,
fueling that. And these are the people who should be responsible, right? They should be the ones who are like guiding us through these challenging pieces and trying to keep everything straight.
yeah,
And yet they're the ones who fuel it. We've talked about Q Bitch a lot of times here
yeah,
and her crew of people, but it works on the other side too. I mean, there's different types of misinformation that gets pushed on the other side too. So I think it's important because this country is awesome. Like I'm reminded of that every day when I go through certain places, when I travel, when I went up to Ohio, I went eight
yeah,
hours through different parts of this country and it's beautiful. It's amazing. There's so much uniqueness about this country and we should be celebrating it because it is the greatest country in the world. I mean, we have so much to give and we have done so much in its history. I just think it's a shame when we allow these very few to shape the opinions of so many.
yeah.
So
Very few, very loud, right?
yeah,
And they just bring people into it. I mean, to a staggering level. I mean, it's really sad to see like, the number of people that already, are convinced that the election will be corrupt, right? People that still believe that people are getting cast in Ohio, right? I mean, it's just that these lies are being sold, and these, this division amongst our population. Like let's hate on each other for our sports teams, or we can disagree for a game and then shake hands and have burgers and beers afterwards. But let's not have these violent disagreements that we see. So anyway, David, for me, it's really just like I think just like we do this podcast, we're trying to share some sane perspective. Right? I'm not trying to be outrageous and crazy. It's like just like let's just be sane and agree and disagree and enjoy one another and enjoy our differences, celebrate our differences while we celebrate the things that make this nation truly amazing. And it is, there's nothing like it. I mean, people, like there is nothing quite like the United States of America. It is awesome. So yeah, so thanks for letting me share about that. I hope folks might enjoy it and check it out. And I'm grateful for us to be able to get together and sort of try and think through these things together, a few times a week. And for those that are listening, to join us in that.
very well said, Andy. Very well said. All right, Andy. So this is a surprise last segment here because
Uh-oh.
we didn't really have like you didn't fill my inbox with a bunch of things for me to go down. Like so, I'm disappointed in you. Fix yourself. Do better next week.
Understood.
But Andy, where are you at? Yeah, like what has your history been like with ESPN as watching ESPN and consuming ESPN? What's your
Yeah.
history been like there?
So I think, when back in the days when there was one ESPN, many years ago, it was to me, it was sort of like ESPN was like an MTV in the sense that like it was this exciting thing that hadn't existed before, right? MTV was music videos all day long, right? And fun VJs and something that's completely different. And ESPN was kind of it was sports all day long. It was this like central place just to consume sports in a way we couldn't do that before cable really blew up. So I used to enjoy it. Just the fact you just put it on and like there would be sports, right? Whatever it was, however random it was, whether you cared or not, like you could sit and just watch something. Like that was really cool. So I thought it was great. I kind of stopped paying attention. It was a long time. I really wasn't watching a lot of TV or anything. We were traveling and deploying, and just TV wasn't happening. And I never really got back into ESPN. I think over the years of today it's I'm watching Red Zone. I'm watching the 35 different paid ways to watch the NFL so I can watch my Lions playing Monday night, by the way, Dave. And so, it's I haven't really gotten back into ESPN, although I still, like it's still fun to joke about the Ocho and the many channels and some of the, whatever D tier sports that are, now available on TV, which is great, right? The fact that anybody can watch any sport is amazing. But that's my relationship. And I'm not sure yours. On my end, you seem to be
Yeah,
frozen. Yeah, go
I,
ahead. Sorry.
I mean, I was, and this, well, I think I'm having some wind related issues, Andy.
Yes, yes. Helene,
And so
Helene.
I know, Helene, uh, um, Berlin. Do you remember that from Road Trip? Berlin. Anyways, the my relationship with it was kind of similar, in the fact that it was always on
Yeah,
for me. Like I always had it on. The Sports Center went until like 1 o'clock in the afternoon. Then it may go off a little, and then they'd always have like the good game that you'd probably want to watch.
yeah,
I loved watching college basketball at the time, and they had the personalities. And Andy, they also had the reporters. Like they actually had true, sports reporters on the show and guiding the coverage. And they always had the insider, right? Like the person telling you what's the latest news.
yeah,
And slowly over time, they've, you know, gone away from a lot of that stuff. And I bring that up only because yesterday they fired. They may say yeah, I don't know if there's a better way. They fired one of their best NBA reporters, Zach Lowe. And, I'm not a huge NBA fan, but I am familiar with Zach because he's on a couple podcasts that I listen to. But this is a true NBA insider. And I'm just not sure now where ESPN is more about sports personalities, Stephen A. Smith, who's the other guy, McAfee,
yeah,
and some of these other guys. It's kind of like this politician stuff, like the loud voices of the
yeah.
few.
The outrage.
Yeah, the outrage. Stephen A. Smith has been making his money the last couple years on making fun of the Cowboys. And yeah, it's a good stick for one or two times, but he's been living on that for like 3 or 4 years now. And he's just loud and obnoxious on a lot of things. I mean, sometimes he's got good points, but at the same time, they're not reporters anymore. They're not like a journalist company anymore. It's all
Yeah,
about now fanning this stuff. And I don't I hardly watch ESPN at all anymore. If there's a Monday night game that I like, I may watch, but more often than not, if I'm on cable, I'm passing through ESPN. I'm not watching it anymore.
yeah.
I'm just worried about, I'm wondering what the future of that company is long term. And I know they're struggling with streaming. I know they're struggling with all this stuff. They still buy all the rights deals. They spent a lot of money on the NBA just recently. It's going to be interesting. It'll be interesting to see. So,
Yeah, you bring up the NBA, and that's another whole interesting conversation. Is the continued sort of the rights games in pro sports and how really it sucks for us the fans. But yeah, these networks trying to redefine themselves, and sports, Dave, just like politics, right? Loud voices, extremes, division, like while we say we hate it, at the end of the day, people tune in, right? And so the networks, whether it's politics or otherwise, right? They feed where they think they're going to get money, and sometimes colorful characters, generate buzz and attention. I still love the inside, right? I love Ian Rappaport. I love getting the inside scoop from Ian Rappaport and everything NFL, right? And he's not wild. He's a pretty soft spoken, entertaining guy, but he just gives you the news, right? And I love that. That's what I want in my news, sports. I don't need wild ass opinions, interviews with Aaron Rodgers. Like I don't need that at all. You know what I mean? But people pay attention, people talk about it, and that's what they want.
yeah, yeah. I mean, that's what I want to. I mean, I want to know the news about my team, and that's being lost, I think. I mean, the media business, it's hard. I think it is hard to people are changing the way they consume this stuff now. And ESPN is going away from their stable shows that rose into popularity, and now we're in these 60-second sound bites that
Yeah,
they can post to YouTube or Twitter or TikTok or wherever. That's just, I think, the way things are going. I don't, and I and when you talk about misinformation, I mean, I think this might be sports misinformation, but I think it's one of those things that help promulgate that. And you have these loud voices who just have these stupid takes, yet people are consuming it. we're losing the real journalism. I'm afraid of. So
Yeah. And that applies again. That applies to sports and it applies to regular news, right? I mean, there's a lot of faux journalism, which isn't journalism at all, right? It's just giving the floor to loud voices, wild voices, biased voices, and the investigation, the news, the hard-hitting facts. They're not always there the way they used to be, right? And that's
yeah,
why I think, local news still has a wonderful place, I think, for all of us, because I think it's you get news, right? When you tune into your local news station, you get weather, you get news, you get traffic, you get sports, and it might be delivered colorfully and entertainingly, but it's usually news. It's when you
yeah,
turn to these major networks that are trying to be, national, international revenue generators where it starts to become, newstainment, and it's less on the news side, and that applies to sports, it applies to politics, it applies to gardening, everything
yeah.
becomes outrageous. And hey, it sells, right? In the social media universe, that stuff sells. And again, that's going back to why, I'm doing that writing is exactly that, because there's so much sort of noisy outrage. Like people lose sight of, like, just give me the news, right? What's the scoop?
Right.
Is my favorite player injured or not? That's what I need to know.
Yeah, all fair, all fair. So, all right, Andy. Well, I think that's I mean, I wasn't sure where we were gonna go with that last segment, and there we go. We
Yeah.
did a good one. We did good, Andy. We did good this week. So,
Well, Dave, I think we're coming up on the end of September. We're about
yep.
to enter the month of October, the final quarter of the year. Exciting times in sports, exciting times for baseball, for football. So there's a lot to look forward to, and then all the joys of fall holidays, Dave. So great to be able to do this. Great to be able to spend a Friday morning with you. And here we go, onwards.
Yep. October 1st is like where I think most like we've started to see some Halloween decorations up. Like the Halloween stuff has been out in the stores since
Yeah,
like July, I think,
yeah.
since but like we're starting to see the decorations go up in the neighborhood. So my daughter wants to do that this weekend, so we'll probably put some things up around the house, maybe outside too as well. So
You won't see him here, Dave. You won't.
I know how you feel about Halloween, Andy. So I have definitely changed a little bit. I'm not one of those scary Halloween people, but my daughter was like, I want to see skeletons and gravestones. And I was like, what? You're eight. Knock it off. Who's talking about this stuff? And so, but all right, Andy. Good week. Good week. Good job by you, Andy. So what works.
Good job by you. Good job by
All
you.
right. All right, with that, Andy, we'll have a good recap of football on Monday. Plus, you'll be looking forward to your Lions on Monday Night Football.
Yeah.
And with that, I will catch up with you next time.